Okay, this is your seriously happy basics of how to measure video. So what we're going to do real quick here is talk about the basics of measuring a space and create a plan like this. This is all I will need from you. So you start out by drawing the basic shape of your room, whatever that is. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about being to scale. Then you're going to place any things, like these are some windows that might be in your room. And then you're going to place any doors that might be in your room. This indicates that that door is swinging in. This is going to another space that I don't have to worry about, but I want to know how these spaces interact with each other. I usually mark important things, like let's say there was a ceiling light fixture right here that I wanted to mark. And I put ceiling height equals so that I don't forget to actually grab it. I'll also mark important things like there's a wall heater right here, and I might say heater. And then when I take photographs, I'm going to make sure I take photos of those specific things so that I can reference them back and forth to each other. The first thing you're going to measure are your overall dimensions. So that is the overall dimensions of the space. Then you're going to break it down wall by wall. So here you're going to measure the first section of wall, then the section of window, then the section of wall, then the section of window, and so on, right? Over here, you might do two different versions. You might do section of wall, section of door, section of wall, and then you also might do from the wall to the center of the heater and give me some dimensions on the heater. Same thing on this wall, section, section, and right here, I'm just going to that same place even though there's no break on this area here. And then same thing, this one is pretty straightforward. I've got the opening of the hallway passage and then the length of the wall. So that's how you're going to break down the space, overalls and small dimensions. Then you're going to grab that ceiling height and you're going to get any dimensions for special things on the ceiling or floor. So distance from the wall to the light fixture, distance from the wall to the light fixture. Once you get that mapped out, then you've got to get into some of the details. Just make me a list on the computer or handwritten. Things like trim size around the window, because when you're measuring your windows, you're just measuring the opening. You're not measuring any trim that would be next to it. So you might mention the trim that is around doors and windows and what size that is. Maybe the baseboard heights in the room. Sometimes these details are important, sometimes they're not, but you can't over communicate. And then you're going to measure any existing elements that you want us to incorporate. So let's say you have a dining table. You're going to give me the length, the width, and the height. And then let's say that dining table had a big skirt underneath of it that hits your legs when you pull up in a chair. You want to give me that kind of detail if I'm trying to choose dining chairs for a table you already own. Dining chairs, for example, the width, the depth, the seat height, and the back height. And then like a sofa or an armchair, you would give me, again, the length, the depth, the height, and the arm height. That's something people miss. I'm going to put a side table next to a sofa. I want to know how tall the arm of the sofa is relative to the side table I might give you. So this is only for existing things that you want us to work with. You want us to have a good list of dimensions on those and, of course, an associating picture with it. So we did that, and we did that. For this specific project, things like a heat register, you might want to show me where that heat register is so I don't end up putting a rug over top of that on the floor. Recessed lights, you might take a picture of them. In this case, it might not be important to know exactly where those are, whereas knowing exactly where the dining room light is very important because the dining table needs to be centered on that dining light. If you have a bar, this might be a bar. This is a bar overhang by a kitchen, which happens to be right here. And if I want to get specific, I could say this is to the kitchen, right? But I want to make sure I know my bar overhang. That's really important because I want to know how far I can push any stools in right here. And I would also want to indicate on a list somewhere the height of that bar, right? Because bars can be counter height or they can be bar height. And if I'm choosing new stools, I want to know exactly what we're dealing with there. And then any existing elements like the built-in media console, the air intake, if we were actually going to be choosing furniture for this entry area here, Those are the kinds of things that might be very specific to a space, and that will inform us so that we can do the best job designing that we can for you. And then you've got to photograph the space. You really can't take too many photographs. You're also welcome to take a video. The main thing is work your way clockwise around the room and get a photo from every corner. So corner and then flat, corner, flat, corner, flat, corner, flat. Make sure you take at least a couple of shots up towards the ceiling so we see those light fixtures and where things are happening on the ceiling, especially if you have complications like soffits. And of course, some detail shots of any light fixtures that might exist that you want us to work with or their locations. So you want to get all flats and corners. You want to get a shot of the ceiling showing any light fixtures, a shot of obstacles like in-wall heaters, right? You want to show me what we're talking about so that if you use a different word on your list, we're still talking about the same thing. And a shot, of course, of any existing elements you want us to work with, like the dining table, like the dining chairs. And that's both so we can see the details of it and get a good sense of the color. So if you can take these pictures during daylight, that's helpful. You can turn off interior lights. They can create a lot of brightness that's not actually helpful when taking photographs. But open the shades, take the pictures in daylight so you're getting the best quality information on both the room, the space, and any existing colors, especially if we're not changing your wall colors. So that is the basics of how to photograph. That is the basics of making sure you get some of the specifics in your room. That is the basics of how to sketch out the design and make sure you're not missing any dimensions. The most important thing is you definitely want the overall and the broken down, because we want to make sure we can compare math. These should add up to this length. It doesn't matter too much if you want to measure in inches or in feet and inches. Just try to be consistent. We in our team tend to do things in feet and inches, so 8'7". Some people will do 8'-7". Some people will do 8 feet-7 inches. Again, just make it consistent and make it readable. People do make errors when they're like, was that 36 inches or was that 3'6" Those are not the same dimension, so you want to be clear and consistent. We do tend to do just inches when it's a really short measurement like this. We'll tend to do feet and inches on these longer dimensions as opposed to just inches. Laser measurers are very helpful, but all of this can be done with a tape measure. It doesn't matter to us one way or the other. If you have any questions, obviously, let us know and have fun measuring.